Oh, I can hear the recorded audio in my headphones. Everything I am saying
Yeah.
is...
Well, you're not going to wear them the whole time, right?
No, but it sounds really cool.
Yeah, it is cool, isn't it?
I feel like I'm not myself.
You feel like cooler than yourself, right?
I've ascended to like a higher plane of existing.
Cruiser had.
Hang on.
Bad thing?
Okay. Oh, I guess I was going to start the intro, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Alright, so...
All right, I'm sitting here with my oldest son, Asher, who is 16, and about, I don't know, a few months ago, sometime before Christmas 2023, he started listening to the Spirit Blade audio dramas, and must have been at just about the right age for them to kind of catch his interest a bit, because he's been...
A bit is a little bit, not stretching it.
An understatement?
Yes, an understatement. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah. I've been very surprised and happy with how much he's kind of enjoyed them and connected with them. And so, anyway, it was his idea, not mine. He brought the idea of interviewing me, asking me some questions. I have no idea what the questions are going to be, so we'll be surprised together about what the nature of the questions are. But I thought it would be a little bit extra fitting, given that this last week, actually we're recording this on Tuesday, March 5th, which is the 20th anniversary of the live show.
That's exactly why I wanted to record it today.
Oh, okay, yeah. So we're recording it on that anniversary 20 years later, of course about 4 years before he was even born. But yeah, so to mark the occasion, we're recording this today, and I'll just hand it over to Asher now to see what he wants to talk about.
So basically, I'm just gonna let you guys know the overall what I'm gonna be asking is basically like the production process, basically of how the first Spirit Blade. We're just going to discuss the first Spirit Blade. I have the Ultimate Edition, so the songs will probably be on a different episode if I wanted to do that. But, we're just going to discuss the story for this one.
Are we talking about just the first part of the trilogy, or all three?
Just the first one.
Okay, just the first one.
And then I was thinking we could do one audio drama for each episode, and then songs as their own episodes as well.
Cool, okay.
So I'm basically going to be asking you, like, details on the production process, getting everyone, I was just thought of that just now, and also ideas that you had for the audio drama before you had a finalized script. And then, since it is 20 years after the live show, what you might have done differently.
Okay, yeah, shoot. So
I have, this one is just this first question that I have about basically the lore of the Spirit Blade world. I'm gonna play the clip right now.
Switch to pattern rounds, men! Shred the first thing that moves! Can you do a decoy run and then shift out of here? What about you? I brought this along. What? Your little spray-on armor? You'll never make it. It's nanotech armor, Vince. Microscopic computers that work together. They'll congeal once they hit the air and assemble into the armor I need. Do you know how stupid that sounds? Just go! I'll meet you outside.
So basically, since you didn't hear it, I gotta explain it to you now. So,
Sorry.
So that was the clip I played where Ran is basically taking out his nanotech armor.
Yeah.
Shows that he has it, and is apparently in a spray bottle thing. So now that the MCU has movies where with their own version of nanotech armor, I'm curious about your thought process on coming up with this.
Yeah, I don't remember. I don't think I had an idea necessarily of it being actually literally in the spray bottle. I mean, it sounds like it. It sounds like it's some kind of a shake and spray bottle.
It does.
But yeah, I think that, I mean, nanotech is a lot more. It's a lot more common in sci-fi since Spirit Blade came out. I mean, their live show was in 2004, and then the very first version of the recorded audio drama released in September of 2006.
September.
Yeah, and I don't even want people to listen to that one. I've tried to make it as unfindable as possible. The special edition in 2010 is the one I would want people to listen to. And even of those options, I would prefer maybe the Legacy edition without the songs. But anyway.
Okay, we're going to get into that.
Okay, all right. Okay, so anyway, yeah, so I must have picked it up just kind of like from comic books. A lot of comic books were my inspiration. Certainly way more than movies, I think. I mean, The Matrix was an inspiration in some ways, with just some of the plot beats, I suppose.
Oh, I can definitely tell.
Yeah, with the Chosen One kind of meeting this underground group, and The Matrix wasn't the first movie to do that. That's a device in a lot of different stories, but yeah, I suppose specifically nanotech, that would have come from the comics. Maybe Mr. Fantastic from Jeff Johns' Justice Society of America. Maybe he was using nanotech. It was a lot more common in comics at the time.
Okay, so on to the whole Matrix thing. One of the first things that I noticed, or one of the things that I noticed about the first Spirit Blade especially, is how many plot points it has with in common with the Matrix. Like this guy who is living a normal life, discovers that the world is not the world he thinks it is, and is chosen by prophecy to be this savior who's gonna save everyone. I guess, in a way, but of course with divine intervention as well. But anyways, so yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there. And I also, this is a really random question that I had, but I never understood the layout of the security office that this takes place in. Because I noticed that, because Rand in this clip asks Vince to do a decoy run before he shifts into the spirit world.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about, like, what does that look like? Is he just, like, gonna walk out and just, like, say, hey, what's up?
Wow, yeah, this is like, man, I have not been asked this question before about the layout of...
I just want to know, because that confused me.
Yeah. I think what I had in my mind was that they were in some kind of like a room with whatever the equivalent of like computers would be, like maybe a server room, if there was an equivalent of that, a futuristic equivalent of that, but someplace where like where it would be the main purpose of the room would be data storage, and so maybe there'd be rows and rows of data crystals or machines, or that use data crystals or whatever, and then there would be a hallway outside of the door.
Okay.
Then that's where the shock troopers are lining up and stuff. I don't know that I had much of a layout beyond that really in my head.
Yeah. So the thing is, like, they after the what does he throw out there? What does Vince throw out before?
Oh, some kind of a gas canister, right? That like shorted out their equipment.
Yeah. So what did they do after that? Their equipment was shorted. I didn't catch all the dialogue.
Yeah,
it's kind of hard for me to understand what exactly he was saying. But.
Yes, what the shock troop commander says is switch to powder rounds, men. And
powder rounds.
Yeah. So
what? Those bullets?
Gunpowder is the idea. Yeah, okay. Like traditional classic gunpowder, which is how modern, today's weapons are used. Okay. And so instead of energy-based weapons, all that tech got shorted out, by the nanotech gas or whatever it was.
That makes sense.
And so now it's just based on the pure physics that operate guns of today, which don't operate off of electronics and computer systems or any of that business. It's just chemical reactions. When the hammer hits the bullet, it ignites, the powder, and that shoots the bullet forward. So, yeah.
Okay, so getting back on topic, so does Vince just, walk out that same door and just see the shock troopers there just getting gunpowder ready or something?
I think basically that's what happens. He just kind of steps out there and, does he say something? He says something.
He says, "Hey,
Hey,
fellas."
fellas. Yeah, just because he's just being, he's doing a decoy run, right?
It's a decoy run, so
he's getting their attention.
Yeah.
Acting as the decoy.
But he's not really running anywhere. He's just
No. It's like a run, is just kind of like a maneuver. Like when you are, when you say I'm going to make a run to this store, you're not really running there. You just that's what you're going out to do.
Okay.
It's like that's the procedure that you're doing right now. So
curse you for confusing me.
Sorry. Yeah. Well, I think I'm kind of relying on a lot of different types of movies and lingo and stuff, some of which you've been exposed to, and so you're able to follow it, and some of it you haven't, and so you'll just be kind of picking things up as you go along. You're actually, at 16 years old, you were actually on the slightly younger side of the target audience that I had in mind. I thought that the very youngest would be like a 13 or 14-year-old, and that would be a really weird scenario that most listeners would probably be around 16 when they started listening, if that, so, and a lot more I think would maybe be more deeper into high school, college age stuff. So I'm not surprised that there'd be some lingo that would go over your head right now.
Yeah. So now that we're on the topic of this scene, one more question I think I had in mind for this is the pulse rifles themselves. Mm-hmm. So how are they designed? Do they have they have 3 different modes, right? They have with these headphones on it, you are shouting in my ear.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
You can take them off and just listen for when you're doing the clips.
But I want to still sound like I'm in an ascended point of existence.
He's really excited about these. He hasn't been on the microphone with my studio headphones on, and so it's a cool new experience. It does feel cool when you have them on and you're listening to your voice. I've gotten used to it. Anyway.
I feel like I've exited my own body.
So pulse rifle, you were going to ask, and I probably don't have an answer for this.
So it has different modes, right? So it has the gunpowder mode. It has the stun setting.
Yeah.
And then, is that it? Is it just those 2?
I can't remember. I would assume that it has maybe another one that's not stun, that's kill badly. Kill badly mode, boys.
What, just plasma? What?
Yeah,
energy?
They're called pulse rifles, right?
Yes.
So I don't know if it's specifically plasma or just some kind of generic comic book energy.
Generic. All right, let's go with that. Generic comic book energy.
Yeah.
All right. And also, since I just thought of this, how did the data crystals work? Are they just flash drives or something?
Basically, in terms of size, I imagine them as being the size of flash drives, but that you could put tons and tons of information on them.
Okay.
I mean, way more than any flash drive could hold today, or that we'll be able to hold for years to come,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's about all I had in mind for this scene specifically.
Okay.
I wanted to ask, going to a pre-production sort of question.
Okay.
What was it like trying to figure out all the actors? Did you have the ones you knew in mind, and how did you get the others?
That's a good question. Yeah, and really relevant to the 20th anniversary of the live show, because at our church, the one we still go to, even though the buildings, there was different kind of buildings and stuff, we just were meeting in that gym building.
Yeah.
So it was all done, and there used to be a stage in that gym building.
Yeah, the Life Center is as old as me.
Yeah,
I'm pretty
that's right.
sure.
Yeah, that's where we have services now, but we used to just meet in what is now just kind of the gym building of the church. Anyway, so yeah, the stage show was cast by Michael Bryce, who plays Isaiah.
Yeah.
He was the worship pastor at that time, and also had in his background a lot of theater and so he directed and produced the show basically with he leaned on my input a lot. He was very respectful to me and wanted to, but at the same time, I can't even remember why at the time. I think I just wanted to not shoulder that and to trust him with the live show element, knowing that I was going to produce, direct, to do everything for the recorded version that would come after. Mm-hmm. But it was the live show that cast most of the main roles.
Okay.
And so most of the cast, in fact, I'm trying to think of the main cast members. So Mom was Ebony in the live show.
Okay.
Mike Tully was in the live show. Randy Hessen.
Mike Tully.
As I know, he's bonkers, right? Randy Hessen was in the live show. Mm-hmm. The roles that were recast were some of the peripheral roles, and some of that was because either they weren't available, and in some cases I wanted something different than. And it was chiefly in the demon voices. Mm-hmm. There was a number of things that I wanted different for the recorded version than from the live version, to try and get them to sound a little bit more, have a harder, nastier edge to their voice than some of the performers had in the live show.
So you just ended up voicing all of them?
No, actually, Joy Curry, unless I'm thinking of Dark Ritual. I think Joy Curry voiced and Dave Curry voiced some of the demons in Spirit Blade or Spirit Blade Dark Ritual.
Okay.
But yes, I certainly shouldered a number of demon voices as well. Yeah. But yeah, most the main performers, I think Jesse Tessier as Claudius on the Nephilim, he was also in the recorded version. So all of them. It wasn't until Dark Ritual that I started actually having casting calls with complete strangers that I didn't know.
Oh, okay.
So I was always working with people that I knew in the live show.
I had no idea that
in the first one.
You reached out to other people to get.
Starting with Dark Ritual, I think was the first time I had a casting call, or maybe that was the Pilgrim's Progress project, but definitely there was people that didn't go to our church in Dark Ritual, like Melissa Van Slyke. We can talk about Dark Ritual another time, but Melissa Van Slyke, who did the High Priestess, she was the wife of a friend of mine and didn't go to our church.
Okay.
Anyway.
So now we and since we briefly talked about the demons, why did you decide to go with the classic monster sounding version of demons?
That was because
it's kind of an interesting, I would say, take on what you would imagine to be monsters or supernatural beings who would basically be behind the strings of controlling everyone's sinful decisions.
Yeah, well, certainly trying to influence. I wouldn't say they control anyone's sinful decisions, but that was based on a couple of different things. One, because I was making this for geeks, I wanted to kind of use stylistic language that was lifted from geek culture. And so the idea of goblins, orcs, these kind of fantasy monsters, they have that kind of growly sound, They're also sometimes played for comedy if they're just stupid henchmen. And so especially in the first one, a lot of the demons are played for comedy, like the
Yeah.
lower tier ones are played for comedy, and just to give a chance to show that Vincent is really powerful and capable.
He's really powerful and capable against stupid henchmen.
Yeah. The demons do become, a little bit more menacing in future installments. But yeah, and then there was also a comic book series, a Christian comic book series that was like really striking to me for how well it was made in terms, especially the art, called Archangels: The Saga, and they had a similar idea of like giving readers a glimpse into the spirit world, and the demons in there looked like, pretty stereotypical kind of monsters, fantasy monsters, hunched back, dark skin with thick, rubbery-looking hides and stuff, and red eyes, and so it was that kind of vibe that I was really looking to create because of the inspirations from geek culture that I was trying to feed off of.
So, I have the next clip ready, so I'm going to play it real quick.
Okay.
Here. Holy drac. Wild kid.
Okay, so I am willing to bet that people who have never seen Spirit Blade before have no idea what just happened. I'm also willing to bet that you have no idea what just happened.
Yeah, because I can't hear what you're playing, so you have to tell me.
That was the scene where we get introduced to the underground liberation.
Okay.
The thing that interests me is the fact that you use this grand music for this scene. We're supposed to know what exactly we're seeing. So I'm a bit interested to know why you went for this kind of feel.
Yeah, I think what I wanted to convey there, and I think it's actually better conveyed in Spirit Blade Dark Ritual. Mm-hmm. In Spirit Blade Dark Ritual, when you hear that theme again, the first time you hear it in Dark Ritual is when we are entering into the Liberation headquarters.
The new one?
The new one. And you hear, before you hear any main characters speaking, you hear lots of little brief scenes of men doing different things, building, repairing, moving things around, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of alive with activity.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to convey that I didn't convey as well in Spirit Blade was a sense of expansiveness. Mm-hmm. And there's a comment that I think that Merrick makes on the way in of like how many men he saw like in uniform and stuff, and so in the dialogue there's a reference to it being this expansive base, but that's not really aided by the sound effects. But I was trying to kind of present a little bit of that with the music there.
Okay.
That like it's that he's surprised at how big this operation is as he's coming into it for the first time.
Okay. I have the next clip ready.
Okay.
This city is mine.
Sorry to bother you, sir, but the Shaden Council is on stream 7.
The council? What do they want?
I don't know, sir, but they wouldn't wait for your meeting to be finished.
They never do. Put them through on a secure, full environmental channel.
Right away, sir.
Brothers, friends, how can I be of service?
Silence your foolish banter. You have been infiltrated.
Okay. So, that was the scene that still gives me chills when we first get introduced to the Shaden Council. Here.
Okay.
It's always stuck with me. I
Oh,
feel
cool!
like.
I'm so glad. There's a funny story behind that. I'll tell you.
yeah.
If you don't ask the question that will lead to it, then I'll tell you the story after your question.
Okay, so I'm interested on the process of getting all those voices and how you designed the Shaden Council to sound, and like And also, was it just you doing all those voices, or were there any other people who were involved?
It was just me. Now,
Okay.
in Dark Ritual, I originally had the thought of having Sean Anthony Roberts, who does the voice of Salos.
Sean Anthony Roberts.
That's right,
Whatever
yeah.
you say, Sean Anthony Roberts.
That's right, yeah. I told Asher a few days ago that that's a pseudonym for our friend who goes by another name that we're not going to say because he's kind of segmenting his screen stuff that he's doing with his audio work, and some people just like to do that. Anyway, so yeah, but I originally thought of having him do it because in the original, the very first recording that released in 2006, the voices weren't layered enough, and so it didn't sound different enough from a single demon because there's already some doubling in the demons' voices. Mm-hmm. So when I did the special edition, I amped that up more. I made more layers of the demons' voices, and I pitched my voice up and down. What I'm trying to remember is whether or not I actually, recorded the lines separately. So, like, if I basically one at a time went Claudius Falcor, Claudius Falcor, Claudius Falcor, and just kind of kept that pace and that rhythm over and over again so that I could layer them. I might have done some of that for the special edition, but I don't know if I re-recorded all the council lines. I don't think I re-recorded all the council lines for that. I don't remember for sure. But yeah, it was me doing all of those, and it took a lot of work to kind of layer them over.
Yeah, I can imagine. The other question I have is, how did you, in your head, want this specific scene to look? And I know there's probably some sort of monitor action, or like something happening on the monitor, or if there was a monitor. I'm not sure if there was, but how did you want the scene to look? Is my question.
Is this the scene where Claudius is talking to the council for the first time?
Yeah, that's when That's
that's right. And he cancels his calls or something like that. I can't remember what the deal is, but basically, if I'm remembering correctly, he wanted to, the council, the idea in my mind was that the council, when they talk to Claudius, they demand that he interact with them in a certain way. Namely, that it be a full immersive sort of VR...
Full environmental channel.
That's right.
Yeah.
So that it be this full immersive experience. And I don't think I make it clear. I can't remember. I don't think I make it clear that that's a demand of theirs, but that is the expectation. And that's, in my mind, for intimidation purposes. They want to have control over Claudius, and so they want him, when they talk to the council, to be in this full environmental channel where he is completely immersed and experiencing kind of their voices surrounding him, you know?
Okay.
And a couple things, hold that thought if you had something else to ask or clarify, but two things I wanted to mention. One, the live show used multiple actors to create the Shaden Council.
Okay, yeah.
That's how we did it in the live show. And that took real rehearsing. That had, I want to say, 4 to 8 actors, I can't remember, who had their scripts, in binders, and they would stand like a big long line at the front of the stage, each at their own microphone, if I remember correctly, and they had to really rehearse speaking in a cadence, in a rhythm, so they could all be speaking at the same time. I think ultimately I just wanted to have greater control over their inflection, so that they could rise and fall and emphasize certain words. And it's harder to do when you're just focused on getting everybody to speak in cadence with each other. So that's why I made the change to do the Shaden Council myself. And then the dorky, funny thing that came to mind that I wanted to remember is that there's an old TV movie called Chameleons, and at the very beginning of it, I could show you on YouTube when we're done here. It was a pilot for a TV series that never got picked up. But like in the opening scene, there's this evil crime organization that secretly rules the underworld of this city, and they meet as this council in a dark room, and they are in these big raised stadium seats surrounding whoever they're interrogating, and they're in darkness, and a spotlight's on the one they're interrogating, but they all kind of like there's like a simulated way of them speaking at the same time, or like an effect on their voices that kind of makes it sound like there's more than one of them speaking. That was really just to disguise the main speaker, but I remember it feeling like, oh, it's kind of all of them speaking or whatever, you know. And so that is this dumb, weird TV movie was my main source of inspiration for the concept of the Shaden Council. Okay, anyway.
So, getting back to the main question.
Yes, sorry.
What did the scene you had in mind look like? Like what? Like Claudius is in the full environmental channel, which I'm not sure what that looks like.
Yeah. Well, I hesitate to share what's in my mind because with audio drama, I will share what's in my mind, but I hesitate because I like the idea that each listener is going to come up with their own idea of what it looks like. In fact, I'd be interested to hear, do you have any thoughts on what comes to mind in your imagination?
So, when I first imagined, like, the full environmental channel, I would imagine that, surround sound, first of all.
Yeah.
Just, have that impact, I guess. But there would also be a monitor, where you would see like you would only see like the wavelengths. You wouldn't see anything but like I always imagine like this green like spectral color, kind of like the Green Lantern color, I guess.
Okay.
Of like a wavelength that you know, acts as it does when the Shaden Council talks.
Yeah, so it's a bouncing wavelength.
Yeah.
That visually kind of moves with their voices. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
that's cool.
That's kind of what I had in mind. But now I'm interested to see what you had in mind.
Yeah, well, I like your idea. It keeps them shrouded in mystery, and yet there is a visual representation of them speaking.
Yeah.
My thought was dark and gray and kind of like smoky and cloudy and really like if there was anything visible, it would just be kind of like maybe like a gray smoke that would maybe just come up to knee height or something. But like really just Claudius being completely alone in this shadowy, dark environment where he really can't see the Shaden Council. He just hears them. I mean, he knows they're there, but they're kind of like a monster in the dark that you can't see. So I really didn't have much more in mind than a sort of gray, cloudy, hazy environment that would keep him off balance because he couldn't see really anything definitively around him.
Okay. And then how does he get into that experience? Is it like a headset or like what happened?
Oh, no. I imagined that there were like some kind of holographic emitters or something all around his office that would create whatever environments and sounds and projections of any kind from any direction that would be required.
Okay. All right. Okay, yeah, that was probably one of the most interesting questions I had in mind. So now we get to... Give me a second. This whole thing kind of takes place over multiple scenes, so I will... This is kind of a long clip. It might be over a minute, if that's okay with you.
That's fine, yeah.
Alright, so, I'm gonna play this whole thing. Here we go.
How are they doing?
Well, the boy is deep in stasis, but is well within the safety limits. It's Rand Galvanic that concerns me, Doctor.
Bring up his most recent scan and let me have a look.
You can see that he recently lost his right arm as well as 40% of his remaining tissue.
Wait a minute. Isolate circulatory system. This one is clever. He's implanted himself with a nanomed unit.
Those are still in development. How did
He designed it himself, I imagine. A few years ago, this man was the best and brightest in the new tech branch of Atlantis.
And now he's a seeker?
A shame, isn't it? Imagine what Rand Galvanic could have given the world. Look at the detail he's put into these nanites. Auto-implementation, self-guiding artificial intelligence. Just look at how quickly his arm is regenerating.
Amazing! Wait a minute. I'm not picking up biological readings on his regenerating tissue. He's using some kind of dense metallic fiber.
That's strange. He shouldn't have the raw material needed for that level of reconstruction unless... Freezing Drac! He's stripping down the stasis tank, using it for spare parts.
Sir, he's just administered adrenaline to himself. He's waking up.
Shut it down! If he completes construction, that cybernetic arm will be able to rip right through the tank. Clear the room! Alert Mr. Falcor that we have a situation.
He's locked us in, sir. Outgoing lines have been shut down. What is that?
The intruder defense system. It's powering up for a pulse wave. He's going to...
Well, that's got to be the best system I ever designed. David, hang on. I'll have you out in a second.
Okay, so that was a bit of a lengthy clip, but that was the entire sequence in which Rand wakes up in his stasis tank and in his new cybernetic body,
Yeah.
which is just now being revealed. I'm curious about how this process happened. Because it is a very complicated process. I have tried to listen to it multiple times, and I'm still confused on how the whole thing even happened. And like, what does Rand even look like at this point?
That is a really good question. And a question that actually doesn't really get clarified clarified better until Spirit Blade Dark Ritual.
Yeah.
And there's a couple different reasons for that. One, I mean, like, as far as like how it worked, having not just heard the scene, I have not, just for those listening, I have not listened to these audio dramas in their entirety for, I want to say, at least 5 years. It's been a long time, so I think it's not fresh in my mind, and I still didn't hear this clip just now. But if I remember correctly, he has some kind of equipment or system on him in his stuff that was in his pack or whatever he's carrying his gear around in.
He had an auto implementation sort of thing where he to recover.
That's right.
The stub that was left behind.
That's right. Yeah. So because the doctor's talking about it, or the assistant or whatever is talking about it. Dr. West, right? Yeah.
Dr. West. Yeah, that's why the scene took so long, because I had to get that explanation.
Yeah. So basically, it's nanite technology again going to work, and it's rebuilding him using a combination of his existing biological matter that is still intact, and the capsule, the machine, the tank that he's being kept in. It's like stripping down metal from inside the tank, and it's rebuilding it, repurposing it, into his cybernetic replacement parts.
From what I understand from Dark Ritual, his entire other hand was also sacrificed.
Other arm, yeah.
Yeah, other arm, that's what I meant.
Yeah, and the reason for that is because there was a mistake in the recording of Spirit Blade. I think this must have been in the live show too, where in one scene, there's a scene that refers to like his left arm being gone. Like took his left arm clean off or something like that, and there's another.
Well, the guy who shot it off.
Says,
like he took the left arm clean off.
Yeah, and then there's another scene that refers to his right arm being removed or something, or I can't remember what the deal is. But
we're just gonna say the Shada doesn't exactly listen up on everything.
Well, no,
that one specific one is just lazy.
No, I decided to take the opportunity to establish that he had lost more than the loss of one arm would account for. That, like, in trying to completely replace that arm, also he had to have biological matter because his new limbs and stuff, it's not that they're completely cybernetic necessarily. They might have a core of them. They might have some nerves rebuilt, some bone rebuilt, something along those lines. But like there's still material from other parts of his body that were repurposed and brought over to fix other parts of his body. So I think that Dark Ritual is where we get a sense that, oh man, so he's probably more than 50% gone. Like, yes, he got that limb blown off, but that's not the only damage he took. I mean, he got seriously messed up, not just losing an arm. He got all shot up big time, So if you've seen the movie, well, you haven't seen RoboCop, the original RoboCop. I think I'm trying to think if Titus watched that with me, but that's, I mean, what was done to Rand and how badly he was messed up, that was inspired by RoboCop and what happens to Murphy at the beginning of that movie. He gets totally messed up and then rebuilt into RoboCop.
I didn't wonder, but I think maybe at some point in the future I might have wondered if that was what that got inspired from.
Yep.
All right, so let's see. I don't think I have any other questions from just the lore of this world necessarily.
Was there anything more you wanted to... Go ahead.
There is one more thing, actually.
Okay.
Okay. I have the clip ready.
Okay.
The extract is prepared, sir. Are you positive you want to do this? I'm sure we can find another volunteer to be the first test subject.
I financed this operation. I want to be the first to benefit from our efforts. Have you prepped the cloning tanks?
Yes, but the clones themselves won't be fully formed until tomorrow. Their dermal and follicle development hasn't yet reached even 5%.
Prep them for fusion anyway. They'll have what they need if this test is successful.
Doctor, stop. You don't realize what you're doing.
Have a seat, sir.
What's the meaning of this? The chair restraints are for our guests, not for me.
For your own protection, sir. Bioprotective field at 100%. Corrosive prepped and set to maximum, sir.
What the drac is that for?
Sir, I don't anticipate putting it to use, but should some form of biological hazard result from this test, we have to be prepared to stop it. Initiating phase 1. Activating full scan. Don't worry, sir. If there are any problems, I'll know about them well before you do.
Don't you see what you're tampering with?
What the drac is happening to him?
It's not possible. His entire molecular structure is just breaking down. I've got to get him to a cryo unit.
There's no time. Just make sure that shield is holding.
At 100%, but...
Corrosive still prepped?
Yes.
Purge the containment area. Flush it out.
What?
He's gone, Doctor. Right now, all you have is a biological hazard. Flush it out.
Wait. His molecular structure is reforming, rebonding, but
what?
Well, it's not so much repairing itself as it is starting over.
He's rebuilding himself.
Into what?
How's that force field holding, Doctor?
Much better.
Sir, your body is...
As it was in its prime.
Please, no.
Do you know what I am?
This is incredible, Mr. Falcor. I never dreamed anything like
I
this.
said, do you know what I am, Dr. West?
Step away from that force field, Doctor.
All of medical history, there has never...
That force field's like tissue paper. It didn't even slow him down.
I am God now, Dr. West.
Okay. So that was probably the longest one yet. And probably for good reason, because this might be the most complicated.
Oh, great.
It has to do with your thought process on the Nephilim.
Okay.
So, the scene I just played is when Claudius gets the original tree replica thing injected into him. And he says that he's like... When he's like reborn into his like new like prime version, I guess, as he describes it.
Yeah.
There's this sort of echo in the background, which is kind of interesting. I'm not sure if it.
Okay.
I'm very interested on what the reason for that is first.
Yeah, I think it's not so much like a physics reason as just I wanted to give this sense of he's elevated and he's got a voice that is just powerful and resonates and carries and stuff. And so reverb, just adding some reverb just seemed like a simple way to kind of convey a sense of grandness to his new form, that it's not just healed. I mean, he's not resurrected, it's this false resurrection. But when we talk about the resurrected body of Jesus, it's not just a revived body of Jesus, it's a perfected body of Jesus that we as believers will also experience one day. We're not merely going to get these bodies back in the best state that they were in during our lives. We're going to get immortal and perfected bodies. And so I wanted to convey this idea that at least at first it seemed like he had achieved that he had truly achieved this indestructible, immortal body. And of course we see eventually that it's not quite that. It's a super body, but it wasn't the replica of the tree wasn't perfect, and as a result the effect isn't perfect.
That brings me into another question, specifically regarding the tree of life, which is different from the tree of knowledge of good and evil.
Yes,
right?
yes.
So I'm interested in what you've thought, how that whole thing works in the first place. Is it like the demons thought it was like some sort of physical substance that they could recreate? Because from what I understand, I could be wrong about this, but it's some sort of it's kind of like how Jesus describes it to be like the bread of life or living water, from what I understand. As long as you're as long as you have this, you are in that immortal state, just like as Adam and Eve were before they committed the first human sin.
Yeah, well, that's a question. I mean, were Adam and Eve immortal before sin? And was death a consequence? Or what exactly was going on there? So I can tell you what my thought was at the time, and then maybe say a little bit about how my thoughts on that have changed, because there's just so much about the genre of the book of Genesis and the first 13 chapters that we don't have a clear handle on, because there's signs in the Hebrew, which some of it even comes through in the English, that this is kind of like poetic language, the way that the sentences are structured, and anyway, that's a discussion for another time. So there's a lot of question as to the nature of the tree of life and what exactly it is we're talking about here. Some would say that it was a figurative idea, and I don't think it was completely symbolic and figurative. It seems that this was a physical thing. How did it work? What did it do? I think my concept for the Tree of Life at the time that I wrote Spirit Blade was that if Adam and Eve were to eat that tree even once, it would grant them immortality forever. But if you look at the text of Genesis, it doesn't actually say that that's the case. God resolves that Adam and Eve should be removed from the garden so that they do not eat of the tree of life and live forever. But the idea of eating from the tree of life, it might have been that they'd already been eating from it, and if they were to continue eating it, it would continue to grant them this sustained life, And that's actually one theory behind the new heaven and the new earth, because there's indications, I'm trying to remember how direct they are. They might be actually very direct indications that the tree of life is going to be, I believe it is, going to be in the New Jerusalem. We could look that up sometime and check that out. I can't remember off the top of my head. So in Randy Alcorn's book, Heaven, which I find really interesting, even though I would definitely pick some nits with it, he suggests the possibility that our immortal bodies will in some way be sustained, not necessarily kept immortal, but I mean, still function best, or in some way they'll be dependent upon continued sustenance from the tree of life. So that is probably the idea behind the tree of life that I find that I would lean toward now. I have no strong views about it. But as far as Spirit Blade goes, yeah, the idea was if you eat of it once, you're immortal forever. And so that's why the idea was, crap, if they use the tree to create this thing that you can inject into somebody or whatever, and it makes them immortal, then it's a done deal. There's no turning back from that. That was kind of, I think, the concept of the threat that was being presented.
Okay. I think I understand.
Sorry, I talked a lot.
Now, no. You're good. Now we get into the, in my opinion, the most complicated thing in all of Spirit Blade, the Nephilim.
Okay.
Which isn't really the Nephilim if you listen to the audio drama, but he's named after them, technically. So, so how he is described is like he is he is a being that exists in both the spiritual and physical world at the same time. But it's also said, the voice crack there, but it's also said that he has a host.
Yes.
Who is Claudius Falcor.
Yes.
So, and then there's the whole possession thing that happens in that one scene. So I'm like, how does this work? Is this Claudius unknowingly here at this time? And then does like the Nephilim is this like two souls in his body? I'm not sure how that whole thing works.
Yes, yeah. So that's very understandable that it would be kind of confusing with what's going on there. And man, it would have been cool if I would have unpacked this a little bit in like Dark Ritual or A World of Shadows. But it's basically this gradual and increasing overtaking of Claudius that I had in mind.
Okay.
Where it starts out where Claudius he's got a demon that's hijacked on him and is influencing him a ton.
Oh. Okay.
And that's why I liked the idea of Claudius and the Nephilim being voiced by the same actor.
Yeah, I did notice that.
Even though he's putting on a different voice, he's these two clearly different kind of modes that he's in of speaking. It's also pretty clearly the same actor doing both, And I wasn't expecting him to be this great chameleon and make that indecipherable, or undetectable. No, is very much intentional that one person would do both roles because of this sense of unity, this bonding happening between them. There's a sense in which Claudius invites the activity of the Nephilim, or of the demon that calls himself the Nephilim. There's a sense in which he invites that just through his own greed and corruption and leaning into that very willingly. And so then over time, the influence gets to the point where the Shaden Council just decides they're going to replace Claudius's spirit, basically kill the non-material part of Claudius.
Yes.
And then continue to basically animate his body, keep his blood pumping, all those kinds of functions, but instead replace the immaterial part of Claudius with the immaterial part of the demon that was really attached to him.
So it's basically like a reverse exorcism, I guess.
I suppose, yeah. In that sense, you're not casting out the demon. They kind of, they cast out the person. Yeah, that's a very appropriate way of thinking of it, I think. Although, I'm exorcism, I would use the term loosely and not, yeah. But anyway, yes, yeah.
So I am still, So we've established that this is the whole time been Claudius's body. So how does Vincent not recognize Claudius in the spirit realm? Does he just see the Nephilim himself?
Yeah, the idea is that he sees something different. He sees some kind of representation of the demon that does not look like Claudius.
So then that would also mean that in the physical world, Claudius was there, just a guy who's there. I guess not really doing anything except being there.
Yeah. Now in the novella, I made a kind of an unpublished novella that I, as like a kind of a glorified special feature, recorded an audiobook version of and put, sound effects in and some music and stuff from Spirit Blade. I did this after Spirit Blade had been released as an audio drama. And you can still get access to this. I think there's some kind of maybe like online audiobook place that has it. Can't remember where. And it's in the special features collection for patrons. Patreon.com/SpiritBladeProductions.
Throw that in there, why don't you?
Yeah, $10 tier, you get everything.
Shut up.
Okay.
Doing this thing right now.
All right, so anyway.
While we're at it, subscribe to Crusader 826.
Yes, please do. That's Ash's channel. Sorry, all that to say, in the novella version, I really originally imagined this cool concept of a fight that was happening in the spiritual world and the physical world at the same time.
Ooh.
Where like Merrick was fighting him in some way in the physical world, and then there was a parallel battle going on in the spiritual world at the same time. When it came to, but that's such a visual concept, and like in a movie version, that would be freaking cool to see a representation of that. But in audio drama, I was like, dang it, I kind of have to do one or the other. And so if I remember correctly, I kind of had them...
You had Merrick go, like, accidentally get himself transported into the spirit
into
world.
A portal or something like that. Like, that's how...
I think from what I understand about how it went down, like, he almost reached the portal generator, but then they, like, blew it up, I think.
Okay.
And that, like, shockwave, like, sent him into the spirit world, like how the portal generator would usually do, except it misses the whole guiding you to the destination thing.
Oh, you're talking about like toward the beginning when they were trying to escape the burning liberation headquarters?
That's not really the beginning. That's closer to halfway through the whole thing.
Okay, sorry. Yeah.
But anyways, I feel like that's in my mind what I feel like happened.
Okay. So complications related to the Nephilim. Did we cover the ones you wanted to cover, or there's a...
So it's like So Claudius was just there being a normal dude.
After he got the tree injected into...
we're still on this scene.
Oh.
Because, like, the Nephilim's there, and since the Nephilim is attached to Claudius, that would mean Claudius is there too, right?
Which scene are we talking about? Remember, I didn't hear the clip.
We are moving clips.
Okay.
We're going back to the escape the escape from the underground liberation.
Okay.
So the Nephilim is fighting Vincent.
That's
there,
right. Yes.
So that would also mean that Claudius is there, right?
Not at that time. So at that time, the demon is attached to Claudius, is associated with Claudius very strongly, but the demon is still existing in the spiritual world, and Claudius is still existing in the physical world. I think the first time that, like, Claudius and the Nephilim are both in the spirit world, I think that's at the very end. That's when they're, when he and Merrick are fighting.
Yeah, he and Merrick, like... So does that mean, like, Claudius, like the Nephilim in the body of Claudius shifts into the spirit world?
Or changes locations in the spirit world, because I think because the demon that's bonded to Claudius is always in the spirit world.
Yeah. But he says that he exists in both the physical and spirit world simultaneously.
Yes. I'm trying to remember if he says that is currently the case, or if that's going to be the case. That is the case. Okay.
That is the case.
Yeah. So I'd have to listen to that again to see if there's something that I've forgotten or something that I'm missing. That might have just been a loophole that you found, or it might have been part of a concept that I don't remember have in my head right now.
All right.
But I think that by virtue of him, what I would suggest right now, without going back and trying to remember what I was thinking, what I would suggest right now is that by virtue of him being so bonded uniquely to a human, and that's kind of like this whole project, the Nephilim project that they're kind of reviving, is the idea of this bond, this unique, inextricable bond between the human, what makes someone a human and what makes someone a demon. That by virtue of that, he is in both places at the same time. Like, his influence is so strong in the physical world through Claudius at that point that he sees himself as freely operating in the physical world.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't remember. That would be my best shot at guessing what I was thinking, but I don't
Maybe
really
you should
remember.
listen to it, and then when we do Dark Ritual, you can finally explain it to me once you've had weeks to process it.
Okay, I
probably.
guess, yeah. Or maybe I just made a mistake. Can we just, then I don't have to do all that work. Can we just say I made a mistake and then...
So you made a mistake, Mouse.
I made a mistake, Mouse.
You will adjust me.
All right, that's Dark Ritual. We'll talk about that another time.
All right. All right. So we have two very broad questions to end this on, because I'm done with the whole lore of the world of this of the audio drama thing.
Okay.
So, the first question is, what ideas did you have with Spirit Blade that didn't make it into the final cut? Just any that you want to put out there.
Well, one I already mentioned, and that was the fight between Merrick and the Nephilim that would have been in both realms simultaneously.
And that's at the end.
That's at the end.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, I mean, I'd actually have to go and revisit the novella, because that's where there would be ideas. Because that scene of them fighting in both places at the same time, that is in the novella, I'm almost positive.
Okay.
And the other idea I remember from the novella, and there's probably more, but the other idea I remember from the novella is Ebony and her whole journey.
Yeah.
Becoming, part of the U.2 project and kind of getting a demon bonded to her, becoming a vehicle and a manipulated tool of demons and stuff. That...
AKA Ninja Assassin thing.
That's right, Ninja Assassin thing, that's right. That plays out in Dark Ritual and A World of Shadows, whereas in the novella, that whole arc for Ebony was in the first story.
The whole thing?
Yeah. Yeah, including like her body just giving out on her and in a final fight, and her just pushing through all that pain and stuff,
It's way too much to fit into one thing.
Yeah.
I can see why you expanded it. Okay. Is that it? All the ideas that you have?
I think so. That's that I can recall right now. Again, if you want like to get the full list of ideas that I originally thought of that didn't make it into the first one, then you'd want to dig through the special features and listen to the novella version.
Okay. And now, it is 20 years after the original live show.
Yeah.
And about 17, a little over 17 years after the audio drama came out.
Yeah, I suppose.
So, I am curious, as of right now, if you could go back and change anything in the audio drama, what would you change?
Oh, man. Well, depending on what you mean by that question, if I were to make it again today, if I were to try and answer the question that way, it would be very different, because my sensibilities creatively have changed. I think you even see that shift going from Spirit Blade to Spirit Blade Dark Ritual, and I think it's a shift that works fairly well, and namely that is that it becomes more heavy, more serious and more character-oriented, beginning in Spirit Blade Dark Ritual. The first one, I mean, it took a lot of inspiration from comic books, from animated series like the 90s X-Men animated series, and like the Batman animated series, like animated series that I kind of grew up with, but was still watching some in college, the ones that were still on, you know. And so it has, by comparison at least, a more of a Saturday morning, you know, younger type of vibe to it. The acting style is more animated and inflected more widely in terms of just how people express themselves. You know, there's just more, you know, it's, and it really becomes more grounded with Dark Ritual. So I would say that that would be the main thing that would change. And I think that would probably change a bunch of things in the dialogue too. I think Spirit Blade would probably be considerably longer, because I would want to give time to character beats and establishing some things about different characters that I didn't in the first version. So yeah, it would be more serious, it would be more character-oriented, and who knows what else like that I would rethink. I think there's some dialogue I would change when Merrick is being shown the cross. There's some ways in which that is described that theologically I'm like, oh, I don't, it's not that I necessarily disagree with myself, but I would word it a little differently. I couldn't tell you offhand what those changes were, but I remember a number of years ago revisiting that and going like, no, I've learned some things since then and I would not word it that way. Yeah. So I think there would be more things in the first one for sure than of all three of them, more things in the first one that I would change, and most of it would be related to tone.
Okay. What character beats would you add to the characters, since you mentioned that?
I think, you know, Ran, beginning especially with Dark Ritual, is meant to represent the misunderstood geek, and the underappreciated geek. And he's a good guy. He's a really good guy.
Yeah, I can tell.
And that's what we're meant to feel about Ran all the way to the end of A World of Shadows, is that, man, this is a good guy and he deserved better, you know? But I think, but I think there's also some personality quirks of him, maybe some awkwardness that I would want to lean into a little bit more in Spirit Blade.
Because that kind of comes out of nowhere in the World of Shadows, I think.
It starts to come into play a little bit, yeah, definitely in a World of Shadows. I think it starts coming out a little bit in Dark Ritual, but not very much. We start seeing how he's kind of underappreciated a bit in Dark Ritual, but so
yes, I didn't really notice that.
Okay.
First few listens, but
okay, yeah, it's pretty brief. It's pretty brief. Yeah, and you know, there's a funny thing in the and I mentioned this in the commentary I made for Spirit Blade, but like I would deal with his trauma of being rebuilt from, you know, cybernetically more. It was when I did the special edition, if I remember correctly, or maybe it was because I knew that I was going to make some changes. I don't remember, but after Tully had recorded Spirit Blade, there's a scene toward the end when David first sees him and says, "Ran, your arm, your body," you know, and he says, "I'll be fine," and then he goes on to say something else, you know, and I used two different takes of his delivery, "I'll be fine," and also like a stutter in there, so that what was originally recorded as "I'll be fine," and then he moves on to another line, instead was edited to sound like "I'll be fine, I'll be fine."
Yeah.
You know, so we get a sense there that like he's not fine.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And that's the most that I could really say there without, because Tully had moved away by then. So flying Tully back just to record the rest of that. I mean, he didn't have recording equipment back then to really do a quality recording for me. But I would have leaned into more of Rand's trauma and what he was, and the fact that he was not fine. I would lean into his nerdiness and insecurity a bit more, I think I would have started planting more seeds about Vincent's dysfunction and his just kind of like his trauma and guilt over Isaiah's death. Mm-hmm. So some of those things that are driving them, I would lean into more, and maybe I would lean into Ebony's stuff more. I think Merrick I would also establish more as kind of introverted. We see signs of that, but I think he still, as I do to many people, probably comes across as an extrovert, just because he's very expressive and is able to talk comfortably or seemingly comfortably around other people, and yet I really prefer to be alone most of the time because I'm very, very introverted. But that's not obvious to people. And so I might have made some changes with Merrick to make that a little bit more clear that he's really not a big people person and doesn't want to.
He's like you.
That he's like me, yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that. Like he says it like he's a people person. He's the outgoing guy. Then in the third one, he says like he's good at talking to people, but it drains him out.
Yes.
So when I first listened to that, I was like, "That's like my dad."
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so I guess that's a long-winded answer to your question, but yeah, I guess those are some of the things I would change.
Okay. And one final question, because I'm realizing I didn't get much of a clear. It has nothing to do with the Nephilim.
Okay.
What does the nanotech suit look like? That he
that he burns through the floor with, right?
Yeah.
That was, in speaking of changes in the novella, it was an invisibility suit.
Ooh.
But that just seemed too tame and like been there, done that.
Yeah, because Vincent's already really did that technically. In a way, like he.
Oh, disappearing! Yeah, in front of the yeah. So I just loved the idea of a superheated, where he didn't even move. He just covered himself, and then it's superheated, and then the way he travels is by burning through floors of a skyscraper. I just always love that idea. I still think it's pretty cool.
He sprays it in the air with his little spray can.
It covers him.
He covers himself.
He's all gooped up and stuff.
It hardens, and then it catches fire? Is that what happens?
I think it doesn't catch fire. I mean, it's like, things around it catch fire. I mean, the trooper does say, it's catching fire, or something like that, or whatever, That's probably not the most precise way to describe what's happening. It's probably... Does he say it's glowing red or white or something? He just
like one of the guys says, "All right, give me a hand here." They struggle to take him out, and he's like, "What the room is catching fire."
Yeah. So it superheats in my mind to the point where it's glowing, and that's when the room catches fire, and then he burns. You can hear crumbling and stuff. Yeah. So what does it look like? Just kind of like almost like the T-1000. I kind of imagine him getting covered in the goop of the T-1000. It's like probably a smooth metallic covering that goes over his entire body, solidifies, and then gets super hot until he reaches his destination.
Okay. I would assume that is the Terminator, because I haven't watched those movies.
Yeah, the T-1000, yes, yeah. See, even as a sci-fi fan, I know you don't like horror, but like as a sci-fi fan, you should muscle through that first Terminator movie, because the rest are like action sci-fi. Well, you're not a big sci-fi fan either, I guess.
I am.
Okay.
I've listened to your Spirit Blade audio dramas.
That's true. Okay.
I'm thinking about it, by the way.
Okay, all right.
And, that's about it for this one.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. Are you
going to cry?
No, I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry. But it is weird and surprising and very, very cool in ways I can't describe to you as a dad that one of your sons takes that much interest and enjoys something that you created. I did not expect that. I never wanted to push it on you guys with any expectation or assumption that you would enjoy it. And so it surprised me, and it is like super satisfying that you enjoy it as much as you do. So thank you for being interested in it and for wanting to do this. And I just I have to say it. I love you.
I love you too.
Oh, good.
No, I don't love you.
Oh, no.